Welcome to the ArmaniTalks show, episode 20. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. This show is the home of soft skills. You will learn skills such as public speaking, storytelling, emotional intelligence, creativity, social skills, and level up mentality. 6 core soft skills that will change your life forever. I drop a new episode in the beginning of every month. So be sure to hit that subscribe button right on below, hit that bell notification, and never miss another episode again. If you're listening from X, be sure to like and retweet. If you're listening from your podcast provider, be sure to leave me a review once the episode is done. In the beginning of every month, I like to drop these episodes because it allows me to get a lot of the ideas that I create on my newsletter, my blogs, my other YouTube videos, and consolidate it into one final piece. Within the past weekend, I had a very unique experience. I saw a bunch of my fraternity brothers that I hadn't seen in a long time. And eventually I run into one of the guys who I just saw he got married recently. So I gave him some props. Yo, dude, congratulations on getting married. And he says, thank you. And then he follows up with, dude, I'm so sorry, dude, that I couldn't invite you. I thought, I wasn't expecting you to invite me. I know you, but it's not as though we're buddy-buddy, where you have to invite me to your wedding. If you want to, you can. But even if you did, I don't know if I would have been able to come just because I was pretty busy. So I didn't even notice that he didn't invite me. He was pretty upset though. Kept saying, nah, man, I really wanted to invite you, but unfortunately, I just couldn't because of certain issues, budget issues. I said, that's perfectly fine, man. And I believe he was pleasantly surprised by my reaction because there were some people that were somewhat upset that they didn't get invited to the wedding. One guy I actually know because he was supposed to be invited to my brother's wedding, but we had to uninvite him because he is such a toxic guy. And when this guy was not invited, he was telling this guy, the guy who came to me and was sorry for not inviting me to his wedding, the toxic guy told this guy, the nice guy, hey man, it's a shame that you did not invite me to your wedding. This is not good. The toxic guy and me were very different in how we perceive wedding invitations. When I don't get invited to a wedding, low-key, I feel somewhat good because I think, okay, I get my weekend back. I don't have to dress up. I don't have to possibly book tickets to a different state and do all of these hoopla. I get my weekend back. But this toxic guy, the fact that he has been consistently getting uninvited from so many different weddings, it's starting to sting him. Because it's one thing if, let's say, an acquaintance or say a business guy that you did business with a couple of months back doesn't invite you to your wedding, you don't care. But when it's a close friend, someone you considered a brother, uninviting you from their wedding, one of the biggest days of their life, that's sort of like a slap you, right? And this toxic guy, I've actually written about him on my newsletter, ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter, which you should sign up for. And I called the newsletter the Fallen Untouchable. Because from my crew, there are a few people that I consider the untouchables. And these guys are people that I will rock with through the thick and the thin. It doesn't matter if they got a DUI and they need some money for, let's say, their law bills. I'm going to give them some money. It doesn't matter if they get caught doing something stupid on a viral video. The world is turning against them. I'm not going to turn against them because they are an untouchable. And it doesn't matter if they're, let's say, going through a divorce, everyone's talking bad about them. I'm still going to have this guy's back because they are an untouchable. And I'm pretty sure they would do the same for me. If I fall, I know that these guys aren't going to leave. So for this group, it's small. I trust them. And surprisingly enough, this toxic guy who keeps getting uninvited from all these different weddings, he was once in the untouchables. I feel bad because when I first came to university, I was, in a very sheltered household growing up. I didn't go to many parties. I didn't ever leave home. And now I'm in college, pretty much starting a brand new life. And I don't have any friends. I don't have any family to guide me in this situation. The toxic guy, though, he was the guy that initially introduced himself to me. And he would consistently just invite me to hang out. He would consistently invite me to new situations where I could meet new people. And without him, I don't know if I would have developed a great friend circle so soon into my university career. For that, I said, it doesn't really matter what happens to this toxic guy. I'm always going to have his back. And I did have his back for a long, long time until alcohol took over his life. See, the thing with alcohol is it's sort of like Russian roulette. Russian roulette is when you pretty much have an empty gun, you put one bullet in the chamber, and you keep pulling the trigger, pulling the trigger, pulling the trigger. You get an empty chamber, empty chamber, empty chamber. Then out of the blue moon, you pull the trigger, and the gun fires off. That's called Russian roulette. And that's what it's like with alcohol. You never know who is going to react well to alcohol and who has a lot of demons, and alcohol is simply going to loosen them up so the demons come out. That's one thing I've noticed. And with this toxic person, unfortunately, time and time again, he falls back into that alcohol trap. And the thing is, he doesn't think that he has a problem. And when you don't think you have a problem, you're not going to do anything to resolve it. And it's just been way too hectic for the past couple of years, to a point where one of the untouchables has fallen and he will not rise up again. He is now out of my life. I don't talk to him at all. And unfortunately, a lot of people are uninviting him from their weddings. I mean, I heard this one horror story where this girl spent months to years planning her wedding. It was the big day, right? This is the biggest day of her life. She's thinking that everyone's going to have a good time. She invites this toxic individual to her wedding. He gets wasted. And when he got wasted, he was apparently flirting with aunties, grandmas, girls, making them super uncomfortable. And in the wedding, people stopped talking about the bride and the groom, and they were just talking about how the toxic person was making a fool out of himself. It got so bad that the toxic person's parents left him. They left him at the wedding completely drunk. They said, "You find a ride back. We don't even want to view you as our son anymore." That's what happens. That's why you got to be very wary about who you invite to your wedding, because you never know how someone is going to deal with alcohol. I could tell when someone's drunk. And when someone's drunk, it's annoying when they're too talkative and they're getting in my grill. In the same event I went to this past weekend, where the guy came up to me and apologized for not inviting me to his wedding, there was another guy who, for the longest time, in my opinion, was always this somewhat immature guy. You give this immature guy alcohol, and he is just 10 times more annoying. He's pretty much just coming up to me, wobbling, and saying Bengali curse words to me. He's Indian, so he thinks this is very amusing that he knows Bengali curse words, and he just keeps saying it over and over. I'm like, okay, ha ha ha, yeah, okay, go somewhere else now. But he knows me. He views me as a familiar face, so he just keeps coming to me and keeps telling me these curse words, thinking that I'm going to keep saying ha 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 all along. And the thing is, when these guys are drunk, if you say, yo, can you please go somewhere else? They get hostile out of the blue moon. Hey man, don't disrespect me like that. What, you're trying to tell me you don't want to talk to me? No, bro. It just, you kind of reek of alcohol and you're kind of annoying me right now. Can you just talk to someone else, not me? And they'll turn a small situation into a big situation. So alcohol is what I call the Russian roulette of communication skills. Some people will use it and become so soft, so gentle, so social. And other people will turn very immature. They will regret all the actions that they did when they were drunk the next day. And if you get drunk, God forbid, in a work party, there's a harder likelihood of you coming back from that. I once went to this work social where a lot of the people, they were drinking, they were mingling, and I kid you not, there was this one guy named Rohit. He was like this douchebag, like, what up, bro? What up, bro? Like this fake surfer accent. Like, how did you get that surfer accent? You were born in Ocala, Florida. Anyways, he has this surfer accent. He's drunk. And eventually we're in a group. There's an executive director, which is one of the head honchos. You get a analyst, associate, vice president, manager, director, then executive director. He's the head honcho. He's over here talking to us. And Rohit, he starts making fun of the executive director's bald head. Like, when did you go bald? Oh, man, if I ever went bald, I want to kill myself, man. We're like, dude, what are you saying, man? Like, you're going to regret this the next day, which he did. So if you're going to be going to work parties, don't get drunk. It is not a good look. Don't do silly stuff because it will hurt your career opportunities. And if it doesn't hurt your career opportunities, let's say the executive director is just as drunk, it's going to make you feel embarrassed the next day. So alcohol is one of those things with communication skills that I always say, like, just watch out. Because once you get in that trap, it's very hard to get out. There was this interview that I believe Donald Trump did with Theo, where he's talking about how his brother died from drinking too much alcohol. And Trump does not drink alcohol. And I thought that was very unique because he's one of those guys that's getting a lot of stressors in his life. He's getting a lot of stimulus from the media, from his family, from rivals, etc. You would think that he would be one of these guys that's sneaking in a cocktail at night. He's not, though. He doesn't drink. And apparently he doesn't drink coffee either. He drinks like 12 Diet Cokes in a day, but he doesn't drink alcohol or coffee. And that's one thing I've noticed with people that don't drink. They know someone that drank a lot, and they just became traumatized by it. Another example is Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather grew up in a tough childhood where he saw drugs all around him, people drinking all around him. And as he grew up, he just wanted to avoid that. Where these are the two paths someone takes. One person will drink a lot, and the other person does not drink at all. And that is what I've always found unique. I thought, okay, so Trump and his brother, they're brothers. They grew up in a similar environment, but one became an alcoholic and died, and the other doesn't drink. How do you explain that? And that really comes down to narratives. Some people, they'll say, since my father was an alcoholic, I'm destined to become one. And other people say, since my father was an alcoholic, I must not become one. This is where a lot of younger brothers often have this cheat code, because a lot of the older brothers, they kind of have to go through the learning process. So the younger brothers, they can somewhat avoid it. I've seen a lot of situations where the older brothers, they will start the school year off, let's say in college, they'll party way too much while out, and then they get kicked back to live with their parents. And the younger brother sees all of this, and the younger brother says, okay, for this reason, I must not party too much my first year. And they're a little bit more polished with their mannerisms. If you flip it and you put the younger brother in school first, who knows how he's going to react? It's because at this point, he doesn't have this a person who's learning things the hard way for him. So I think if you are a younger brother, in many ways, it is a cheat code, especially if you are close with your brother. One thing that I have noticed, now let's delve into the world of emotional intelligence and a little bit with social skills. I've noticed a lot of people, especially a lot of these childhood people that I went to parties with, they're not close to their siblings. Sometimes I'll go to these events and I'll ask, hey, how's your sibling doing? They're like, I don't know. Oh, I mean, you don't know what they're doing right now, or you just don't know in general? Beats me, bro. I haven't talked to my sibling in 3 years. 3 years? That's a long time. A really long time. Because I would imagine that you guys will somehow keep in touch. Not quite. They just don't talk. And I asked them if there was anything bad that happened. And they'll often say, no, we ran out of things to talk about. I actually saw this situation when I went to an event recently where the girl and the guy, they were such close siblings for the longest. They had inside jokes whenever they would invite our family and a bunch of other families to their house. The brother and the sister knew how to play off each other's energy to entertain everyone else. They were just so close. So when I was asking the sister, hey, how's your brother been? Honestly, I was expecting good. But it suddenly turned dark. She says, I don't talk to him anymore. Why not? Because how do you respond back to a question like that? Oh, really? You don't say. I just said, why not? But after I asked that question, I thought, oh man, was that too much of a personal question? Because I don't really know this girl that well. And she said, well, the reason why is because we're just in different stages of our life right now. I thought, okay, well, who cares if you're in different stages? Why don't you guys tackle the different stages together? Let's say you're like trying to find a husband and he's already married, which he's not. I mean, you guys are both single. So I feel like there's a similarity there. You guys still don't have anything to talk about. But let's say you guys are in different stages of your life. You're still telling me you guys can't find a way to bond? And to make it worse, they live in the same city. So this is a epidemic, I think, that's been happening more as of late, where people will just say something like, we just ran out of things to talk about. I think that sort of mentality is fine with certain friends. Let's say you're into self-improvement a lot and they just want to party at this stage of their life. They don't care about anything else. Eventually, you guys are going to run out of things to talk about. Then I think it's fine for you guys to somewhat separate. But with your sibling, I don't think it's smart to introduce those sort of habits. One person always needs to make the intention to stay in touch. If neither person makes that intention, boom, it's done. Eventually, you guys are 40 and people will ask, do you have a sibling? Yeah, I do, but at this point, we're strangers. And if you ask me, that's one of the saddest things that can happen. Because a sibling is God giving you your first friend, if everything works out well. And even if it doesn't work out well, I think at that point, an older brother needs to take charge. The older brother needs to say, look, I'm the older one. It doesn't even matter if I'm 9 months older. I'm the older one. I am going to take control of the situation. If the older brother is just as lacking empathy as the younger brother, then nothing is going to get done. The older brother has to take charge in this scenario. And the older brother just has to be like, look, you don't have to like me. I don't have to like you. But here's what's going to happen. Eventually, there's going to come a time when mom and dad aren't around. And there's going to come a time when me and you are the only people that really are blood, that are within the same geographic location. So we're going to have each other's backs. We don't really know the kind of problems we're going to face at age 40, 50, etc. And eventually there's going to come a day where you need me or I need you. So we got to start mending the relationship somehow. And from there, a spark is beginning. And that's when you guys hopefully try to get closer again. But the older brother needs to take charge, or the older sister needs to take charge. Otherwise, it's just not going to get done. Because one thing I've noticed, at least from my experience, is that the subconscious mind, it never goes away. So the older brother, the subconscious mind still remembers moments where he was taking care of his little brother. He if the little brothers fell for some reason and the parents weren't around, the big brother knew to get the parents to pick up the little brother, something like that. So there was a period where the older sibling had to care for the younger sibling. They probably dealt with some jealousy. If you watch Everybody Loves Raymond, you know what I'm talking about. But eventually they learned to understand that the little brother was a little bit more dependent on the big brother than the other way around. And I don't think that goes away when you're 30, 40, 50. It just gets buried deeper and deeper. And every now and then, you need someone to remind you, yo, you are the older one. You have to take care of this. Sort of like when parents and kids argue, most of the community members of the parents, they're not saying, wait till the kid apologizes. They're saying, you're the parent. You know better than the kid. So you need to start something off. If you don't, that's a bad luck. So siblings are losing touch faster than ever nowadays. And I think it's just because of the instant gratification culture. I think people are too babyish nowadays. They're like, oh, well, it makes me feel uncomfortable. So what am I supposed to do about it? Deal with the discomfort while you're still doing it. And just like siblings are losing touch with one another, so are kids and their parents. In my podcast, Unapologetic Truths, which you should definitely listen to, it's a podcast I co-host with Life Math Money, I was talking about how a lot of kids that are close to becoming doctors, they're in the finish line, suddenly realize that's not what they want. They tell their parents that they don't want to be doctors anymore. The parents spaz out because the parents, their entire narrative, let's say from moving from India to the US, was we're coming to this new country so our kids can one day become a doctor. That is the narrative that they are operating everything with, from showing houses, like let's say your dad is a realtor showing houses, let's say your mom is a nurse, to clocking in these late night shifts, everything. They're saying, well, it'll all be worth it when our son is finally a doctor. And now the son, he's almost at the finish line and he's saying, Mom, Dad, this isn't what I want. You think the parents want to hear that? Of course not. So they start spazzing out on the kid. The kid starts spazzing out in return. And just like that, they lose touch for a long time. I have been seeing so many situations where the child cuts off all contact with their parents, and it's specifically in the medical field. Because you don't just stumble into the medical field. If you think a doctor is a dummy, think again, because to become a doctor, you need sustained perseverance. You need to go through these classes. You got to do residency. You got to shadow people. You got to say no to a lot of nights you want to say yes to parties. You just have to show grit for a long time. So you're pretty much reorganizing your life. And a lot of these people, it takes them a while to reorganize their life. They stumble and fumble for a couple of years. They have to go overseas, go international, do the med schools there. And eventually, once they're on the finish line, they're about to become a doctor, they start to think, why do I want to become a doctor again? And they realize that they don't have a compelling answer to that. They have no clue. And then eventually they realize, wait, I never wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a video game developer. My mom wanted me to be a doctor. My grandma wanted me to be a doctor, but never me. And that's when this person begins to resent their mom and their grandma for influencing them in such a big regard, regarding such a big decision. It's very dangerous, in my opinion, to force people to choose a certain career. And this is one of the things that I'm seeing more and more nowadays, where before, cutting parents off, that wasn't seen as a smart thing to do. Or nowadays, if you cut your parents off, you'll get a lot of shoulders to cry on. A lot of people will say, well, me too, right? I cut my parents off. What was your story? And then they're both hearing each other's stories. They're reinforcing the fact that they think they did the right thing. And now they just stay cut off. There's a YouTube channel where moms talk about how they lost complete touch with their child. And they're basically saying that they're mourning the alive because their child doesn't talk to them. And it's not like the mom is super old. She's 45, in maybe 50, and her daughter is already not talking to her. I mean, that's a very empty feeling in my opinion. And this is one of those situations where compromises need to be made. the parents that spent their entire adulthood trying to get the money so their kids can become doctors need to compromise to a certain degree, or the kids need to compromise. Okay, well, you know what? My parents are right. I am in the finish line. How about I become a doctor? Or the parents say, okay, let's say he does become a doctor and let's say he hates it. I mean, what are the consequences? He could take someone's life by accident just because his head was not in it. You don't want to be a lackadaisical doctor. You either want to be all in or all out. And he's just going to resent us for the rest of our life. So someone needs to compromise. And in this situation, compromising is tough because one person is fully going to get their way and the other person is not remotely going to get their way. That is why compromising feels so difficult. One person will get everything that they wanted and the other person will get nothing. When someone compromises with you, you want to give them a lot of props. You want to say, thank you. Okay, thank you so much for understanding where I'm coming from. I really do appreciate it. You really want to take some time to appreciate them for compromising for you. Instead of doing that, though, a lot of people do the exact opposite. They think, well, I got this out of them. I wonder what else I could get out of them. And they keep making the other person compromise more and more and more. And they keep ignoring the compromising situations. So let's say the son in this scenario gets his way and the parents are like, okay, fine. You don't have to be a doctor anymore. Do your video game developing. The son suddenly is going to think, what else can I get away with? Mom, Dad, I don't want to come back home for Thanksgiving this time. Mom, Dad, I don't want to have kids. Mom, Dad, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And eventually, this kid becomes a monster because he's not acknowledging the pain that it took for the parents to compromise. Instead, he's just viewing it from his angle. So whenever someone compromises for you, it doesn't matter what it is. If you guys were arguing about it, like where to settle down, and eventually, let's say your girl agrees to settle down at your spot, you got your way, and now her life is going to get reorganized. Not yours, but hers. You have to take the time to appreciate it. You need to appreciate it in a long duration of way too. Not just, hey, thanks, and then you go about your day. You want to say thanks a couple of times from different angles. Hey, thanks for moving here. Couple of weeks goes on by, man, this is going to be the first time that you're doing Thanksgiving in this state, not another state. Once again, I really want to say thank you. You don't want to say thank you too much because now this person begins to second guess themselves, but you want to say thank you enough to a point where they understand that you understand. That's what social skills is really about. It's about appreciating others and understanding that all humans are creatures that crave words of affirmation. I was doing this love language exam a couple of months back, and I got my results. I noticed that I like acts of service. I also noticed that words of affirmation was very high on the list. And when I saw words of affirmation was really high on the list, I got a little embarrassed. I thought, wait, I thought girls needed words of affirmation. I'm a guy. Why do I need words of affirmation for? So I took the exam again. I took it again, and I got the same results. Words of affirmation for one of the times I was taking the exams, it was actually higher than acts of service. And I felt as though I was self-sabotaging myself to try to prove to myself that I did not need words of affirmation. A lot of the times I would be given an answer, and I knew that I wanted to choose the one that was more words of affirmation, but I felt as though there was a certain mold that I needed to follow. So I picked the opposite answer to lower words of affirmation. The thing that I realized, though, is that words of affirmation, pretty much placing importance on people's actions via verbal language, like, hey, I really appreciate how you're always on time. Hey, I really appreciate how consistent you are. Hey, thank you just for being a part of my life. It means a lot. These are words of affirmation. This is not gender specific. This is not something that women just want and men don't want it. You will see a lot of the times when men call off a certain wedding after years of dating, or let's say they're married and then they just initiate a divorce out of the blue moon, you ask them what happened. Time and time again, they'll say, I just didn't feel appreciated. Sure, they'll say the other stuff like the physical touch as well, but they'll often say that they just didn't feel appreciated. I do think women may need it a little bit more than men, but as of late, I've actually been questioning this belief. I think they need it equally, or men need it as well. Maybe equally. I mean, I'm still not completely certain about this. It's just one thing that I've noticed more as of late is that when most people do the whole love languages exam and they do it with men, they're like, oh, physical touch is going to be number one. Why even bother making them take the test? Or that's not always the case. Words of affirmation is really high up there. It's important to pause and every now and then give the words of affirmation. And that makes the guy feel appreciated. Because women and men, they show romance in completely different ways. Where men, they do a lot of these romantic stuff that cannot be posted on Instagram. I saw this one post recently that said, if you want to be romantic towards your girl the way that she wants you to be romantic, you want to do things that she could Instagram. For example, guys, they view it as being romantic where if you guys are doing a long road trip, the guy offers to drive the entire time. Rather than going 50-50, he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to drive the entire time. This is him being romantic because he's giving up his time so you can gain your time back. Whatever you want to do at this time, you could sleep, you could be on your phone, do whatever. I'm going to be driving. This is his version of being romantic. The thing is, that doesn't make for a great Instagram post. So the girl is often not going to even perceive that as being romantic. She's going to see that he drives all the time, he initiates dates, he texts her first, etc. But she can't make an Instagram post out of it. So she'll say something like, how come my guy's not more romantic? So the guy needs to think, okay, when I do something and I want to show that I'm being romantic, can she Instagram it? So that's why flowers are so clutch. Because when you get a girl flowers, now she could actually make a beautiful Instagram post out of it, or at least a story. If you get a girl like a box of chocolates, once again, she could make an Instagram post out of it. That's why for a lot of girls, if you make them take the love language exam, you will see that getting gifts is really high up on their list. For me, getting gifts was, I think, like a 1%, if it was even a percent. And most guys that I gave the exam to, when they took it, getting gifts means nothing to them. They don't really care. So as a guy, if you're trying to be romantic, think like that. Whatever you're trying to do, you want to see, can my girl eventually Instagram it? If she can't, then she is not going to perceive this act as romantic. But if she can Instagram it, then she will perceive this act as romantic. I thought that was such a mind-blowing concept because this is one of the reasons a lot of couples break up. One person believes they are doing romantic gestures, and the other person believes the person is not romantic at all. And the person who thinks they're doing romantic gestures don't feel like they're being acknowledged for their hard work. They're not getting any words of affirmation. As a matter of fact, they're getting the exact opposite. How would you feel if that happened to you? Let's say you're single. Let's say something like this is happening at work. You're at work and you're doing all this extra work and your manager is saying that you don't do anything. Eventually, you're going to start looking for other companies. This is why it's important to see that men, women communicate in completely different ways. And social media does have a big role in how modern relationships are formed. For example, I'm not one of these guys that is always liking and commenting on people's pictures. Every now and then I will do it. But the thing is, if my girl posts something and I don't even acknowledge it, she's going to feel a certain type of way. It's because from her perspective, she's going to say, he didn't like the post. And for girls, what happens with them is that when a guy means a lot to them, they could get 100 to 200 likes, but all they're looking for is that one like from the right guy. That is all. So a lot of these girls that post thirst traps, they're seeing a lot of DMs, but they're only expecting DMs from one guy. And if they don't see that DM from that one guy, that means the thirst trap did not work in their worldview. Even though they got 50 leads, that one guy didn't respond. And that's why social media definitely means a lot more for modern relationships than ever before. I saw this girl talking on TikTok recently about how her parents met. And her parents were telling her a story that somewhat shocked her. She said, the mom said, "Oh yeah, your dad would follow me home." And the daughter's asking, "Oh, let me guess, you guys were talking for a while and he was interested in you?" The mom said, "No, I never met him in my life and he was just following me home." The daughter said, "That is so freaking creepy. So dad was stalking you." You know how nowadays on social media we follow people? The dad was actually following the mom. Literally. I thought, that is so freaking spooky. But back then, in some ways, that was seen as romantic to the mom. The mom thought, "Oh man, what am I going to do with this guy?" At first, she did not vibe with this guy at all. She didn't find him physically appealing. She just thought he was weird. Back then, though, you didn't have these dating apps, social media. You just had people in your geographic location. So you would have to see who from your geographic location was giving you the most interest. And typically for back in those days, within this specified geographic location, there were roughly 2 to 3 men that were really interested in a woman. Now from that, whoever was the most persistent would eventually end up getting the woman. So let's say there were 3 guys. The woman really liked one of the guys, but the guy was too cool and calm. He was just laid back a lot. Then most likely, even though the woman likes this guy likes the woman, he's not going to get her because he's not showing that much of a will to get her. Or the third guy, let's say he looks like Scooby-Doo. He's ugly. He's a weird guy, but he's following her home. He's super stalkerish. He's showing persistency, at least back then, within this village. Don't try this at home. Don't even try this nowadays, because nowadays, a lot of things are considered creepy, even though back then, it was considered normal. Back then, hitting on your coworkers, it wasn't that weird of a concept. A lot of people, and this isn't even that long ago, this was around 2012, a lot of people thought, yeah, I work with my coworkers. I see them all the time. They know what I do. So why don't I get with them? Nowadays, if you do something like that, it's going to just set you up for trouble. It's just crazy how fast things change, and how when we view something as weird right now, back in the days, not only was it considered normal, it was considered the ideal thing to do. That's why I feel really bad for these guys that are 45 to 50 that are getting back into the dating scene, and they're seeing what they have to learn. The learning curve is so steep nowadays, where you just need to watch out. You just need to be more mindful, and you need to be patient, because you're going to need a lot of patience. The dating landscape has changed. The job market has changed. A lot of changes are occurring. And the thing is, since they're occurring before our very eyes in incremental ways, we don't notice it. We don't notice it at all. Dial-up, for example, that's something that has changed a lot within the past couple of years. Google. By the way, I've been wanting to talk about this. Google. I don't really use Google like that nowadays. I'll use it for certain things. It's still a great search engine tool. But if I really need the answer, I go to ChatGPT. And I'll give you an example. Before, trying to get one of these recipes on Google was so annoying. When YouTube came out, I was like, okay, finally I could see what is being done. But then I would go back on Google, because a lot of these YouTube videos, these guys would talk for a long time, and I just needed the recipe. The problem was with Google, these articles were fixed. So let's say I have 3 pounds of boneless chicken thighs. The blog that I'm reading, it says it's the meal recipe for 4 pieces of boneless chicken thighs. I don't know how much it weighs. So all the seasonings and everything, it's somewhat compromised, or I have to do too much calculations. With ChatGPT, I literally just say, give me a spicy chicken marinade recipe for 3 pounds of boneless, uncooked chicken thighs. And boom, it just gives me the answer. What about for 4.5 pounds? Boom, it just gives me the answer. The straight up recipes. I'll say, make it even more simple. Boom, it makes it more simple. So with ChatGPT, I'm just getting the answers, and I'm thinking, why the heck am I going to use Google? The main reason I'm using Google nowadays is because with ChatGPT, the free plan that I'm on, you only get a certain amount of commands per day, and then you have to wait 24 hours. Eventually, I'm going to actually pay for the subscription because ChatGPT is so freaking useful. You should try this, by the way. I've actually done ChatGPT on myself. I'll ask it questions like, who is ArmaniTalks? What does ArmaniTalks do? Write a 1,000-word essay on ArmaniTalks. And time again, it does it. It knows more about me than I initially thought. I thought it was going to say, oh, I don't know who ArmaniTalks is. It knows. It was capable of writing a 1,000-word essay on me. And once it did that, I kid you not, it just gave me more clarity about what the ArmaniTalks business stands for. Because you may have a perception of yourself, and the world has a perception of you. And when you ChatGPT yourself, it somewhat makes these two worlds align, and you just have this crystal clarity about what you do. I have more clarity than ever about what the ArmaniTalks business does. I knew it before. I knew that this was a media company that creates entertaining and educational short stories to help engineers and entrepreneurs improve their communication skills. But when I saw it in writing from ChatGPT, everything just felt more real. So if you are some sort of content creator, I recommend that you ChatGPT yourself, and you will learn more about your brand mission. Now, with Google, it should terrify people how Google is going from one of the most relevant companies. I mean, it's a verb, Google it, to a company that could become irrelevant if ChatGPT grows in power. I mean, Google better step up its game, because I will every now and then go back to Google just because I have a nostalgic, emotional feelings towards Google. I will ask ChatGPT a certain command like, hey, give me a recipe for 3 pounds of chicken thighs. Then I will give Google a chance. I'm like, ChatGPT just gave me a great answer. Google, if you can give me anywhere near a good answer, I will try out your recipe tonight. I do it, and the answers are not as good. I just get a bunch of different blogs. And nowadays, just like looking through blogs, I'm thinking, why am I going to do that for? Let me just get the answer. ChatGPT does have its flaws, though, by the way. Because I asked ChatGPT, how tall is ArmaniTalks? It says 5'6". I'm not 5'6", my dude. I'm 6 foot tall. You better fix that real quick. So I made it fix itself, and luckily it updated. Hopefully, you should actually ask ChatGPT today, how tall is ArmaniTalks? So every now and then it won't give you the right answer. Doesn't matter though. I mean, thus far I've tried it enough to understand it works. I've tried its chicken recipes. It works. I've asked it questions where it gave me answers that Google took way too long to respond back to. Every now and then I'll ask it a question. Hey, I'm an entrepreneur in Florida. I'm set to make this much amount of money. How much money am I really going to keep after I have to pay taxes and everything? And it runs some calculations and gives me a rough estimate. This rough estimate is worth gold to me, because now at least I have a target. I have a rough range where if I type in a command like that on Google, I'm going to be getting a bunch of stuff that I really don't need. I'm really a fan of ChatGPT. I'm a big fan, where people are already talking crap about it. They're like, oh, this thing was wrong, that thing was wrong. I'm like, just wait, dude. We're just in the beginning stages. Don't be so ungrateful. I mean, it's a miracle that we're living through this generation where you pretty much have a sidekick in your phone. Which brings me to another thing. The more that I use ChatGPT as a grown man, I'm 32, the more I think, man, why wasn't this tool around when I was in high school? Because if this tool was around in high school, it would be impossible not to cheat. Not it would be hard. It would be impossible. Because how did kids cheat back in the days? They just needed to get a rough idea, then they would modify it. So let's say you had to write an essay on Native Indians. You had no clue what the heck Native Indians did or whatever. You would read the Smart Kids essay, you would process the main points, then you would write it from your own words. This is what a lot of the high school kids did in order to cheat. With ChatGPT, you just say, write a 1,000 word essay on Native Americans, Indians. It'll write something, and then boom, you just modify the words. So with ChatGPT, it's almost impossible not to cheat if you are a student. This is why I'm grateful that I'm learning to use ChatGPT as a creator. I use it as my personal sidekick. For example, I will think of the YouTube video. I will deliver the talk. I will do all of that. But by the time I have to publish it, I'll say, ChatGPT, think of 10 catchy YouTube titles based on a video that is about, boom, what the video is about. And just like that, 10 catchy YouTube titles. It is my sidekick. It is not my master. If you're a kid, though, you don't have that discernment where you could easily fall victim into thinking ChatGPT is your master. But if you're a creator, you understand what you do need versus what you don't need. And this should also be very terrifying for virtual assistants and freelancers, because a lot of the things that my virtual assistant would have to do before, I could just get a tool to do it or ChatGPT to do it. This is why foreigners are not only taking your jobs, robots are taking your jobs too. I mean, before I had to pay this virtual assistant $20 per short. So he would get one of my YouTube videos, he'd get the most intriguing parts and put it into a short format that then I would have to manually upload on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. And nowadays, I have a tool called Opus Clips where I just get the YouTube video, click a button, and boom, I get 15 shorts just from that. This job that I would have to pay my virtual assistant for before, I don't have to pay him for anymore. I just get the subscription for Opus Clips. Eventually, more and more roles are going to be like that. Right now, I have to pay people for book cover designs. In the future, I'm pretty sure I could just explain what I want, and then the tools will create something that looks good enough. And from there, I could get a graphic design. I'll just say polish it up. Or I could learn some basic graphic design skills and I could polish it up. I just got completely rid of this graphic designer position. This is the good thing as a business owner. I'm saving a lot of money. The bad thing is that a lot of jobs and industries are going to be completely transformed. One of the dark things about automation is that you could like the person. The person may be a good, warm, sweet person. They could still get automated though. For example, the guys that cut my lawn, such good people. It's 3 of them. It's Jose, his brother, and his mom. Great people. Awesome. Gives me great deals. When I'm away, they'll message me, hey, Armani, it's been a while. We're around your area. Do you want us to cut your grass? I say, yep, go ahead, cut it. I'll Venmo you the money. Boom, done. Let's be real though. Are lawnmowers going to be a thing in the future? I doubt it. Think about Roombas, those self-functioning vacuum cleaners. You know, those discs that go around your house and just take in all the dirt. Why can't there be lawn mowing Roombas? In the future, we're not going to be hiring a lawnmower to cut our lawn. We're just going to unleash these lawn mowing Roombas in our backyard, in our front yard, and it's just going to cut it and boom, we're good to go. Unfortunately, these lawnmowers, these companies, they're just going to die, and it's going to be sad because these tools, they're going to make these guys like Jose, their lives, their jobs, their skills completely meaningless. And now they have to start over. Jose's mom, she's so old, yet she's pushing the lawnmower. I give her props. Unfortunately, her job is going to get automated soon. And the reverse to this is that people that you don't like, this guy's so annoying, man. I wish his job would get automated. My handyman, I don't like that guy. He's so annoying. He's always late. He's always trying to charge me extra. I wish he gets automated. He's probably not going to get automated anytime soon. One of the dark truths about automation is that a lot of sweet, gentle people will have their jobs automated, while a lot of jerks will not have their jobs automated. This is one of the truths of the real world. Robots are going to take the jobs, and foreign talent, you have to fight with them for jobs as well. I don't know if you've been on Twitter recently, but there is so much India hate on Twitter nowadays. Indians and Jewish people, they are getting it so bad. And it just happened out of the blue moon. Because I remember Twitter used to be this platform where I felt as though they were a little too much, where even if you would say something small like, boom, your account is banned, no notifications or anything like that. Recently, there was this guy named Barry Stanton. He was the guy that was spreading a lot of content that I believe sparked the anti-India sentiments on Twitter. And his account got banned. And soon as his account got banned, a lot of people began tagging Elon Musk, and they said, Elon, I thought this was a platform for free speech. And nowadays, it's actually a tricky situation, because at one moment, you want to have a free speech, and at the other moment, when you have a lot of free speech and people are, let's say, saying racist stuff, what do? Is hate speech and free speech the same thing? And here's my solution to all of this. My solution is I view free speech as electricity. Where electricity, it is capable of powering the country. Similarly, with free speech, they say that free speech is the bedrock of any democracy. Now, the thing with electricity you need to understand is that if you just have electricity flowing around and people are just touching it willy-nilly, there's going to be a lot of dead bodies. You don't want that. That's why electricity is covered in a thing called insulators, those plastic encasings. So you could touch the insulator and you're not going to get shocked. Similarly, with free speech, I believe the insulator, it's the rules. And once you get the rules, you need to enforce it, and there's no creating subjectivity out of the blue moon. Now, creating the rules are tough because to monitor free speech, you need some form of subjectivity all the time. One person's hate speech is another person's joke, right? So you got to get really clear about what is hate speech considered. My thing is this. I think whenever you're dealing with a mass audience, you need to focus more on physical harm versus mental harm. So I don't think something is considered hate speech if it just hurts your feelings and that's about it. I do think it's unethical, but I don't think that's something that it's easy to completely remove, right? Because it's always going to cause some form of backlash. I think true hate speech is something that can eventually cause someone bodily harm. So these are the types of free speech that should be monitored. For example, let's say someone's talking a lot of crap about me, okay? And I have connections. I get this guy's personal information. I get his address, his social security number, his daughter's information, and I post it online. I could always make the argument, well, I'm allowed to say whatever. I mean, you're not trying to hinder my free speech, are you? In my opinion, that's hate speech, because what I have now done is that I have potentially put him and his daughter up for bodily harm. It doesn't matter if I write, his daughter sucks. Like, she's just a bad person. She's a buffoon. Or I see a YouTube video of her dancing, and I'm like, man, she's such a bad dancer, and I hurt the dad's feelings. I don't think that's hate speech just because I hurt someone's feelings. But if I could put them in a situation where they will have bodily harm, I believe that is hate speech. Okay? So that is the rule that I would propose if I would run one of these platforms. I'm like, you can say whatever you want, but the second that you do something or say something that could put people in physical danger, then it's going to be deemed as hate speech and you will get a strike for that. Now, physical danger, you actually have to really think this one through. What does this really mean? So if I'm over here spreading lies about someone's business, am I putting them in physical danger? At first, most people will say, no. I mean, you're not hurting them or anything. You're not unleashing a mob towards them or anything. In my worldview, absolutely. If I am spreading lies about someone's business and now this person, his revenue has slashed 30%, he can't pay his employees, he can't pay his mortgage, he gets kicked out of his house, and now he's living in his car, he can't afford food. Am I causing him bodily damage? Of course. That is hate speech. And that is the speech that deserves to be monitored. Otherwise, you have electricity just flowing around everywhere and people are just touching it willy-nilly with a bunch of dead bodies. That's why with our founding fathers, they did not have the kind of technology that we do. Nowadays, your words matter a lot more. There are individual media companies. One person can influence millions of people. That wasn't the case for our founding fathers. So free speech is absolutely important, just like electricity is important. However, electricity without insulators is trouble in the making. And similarly, free speech without any form of rules, it is trouble in the making. And the only time you realize something like this is when it's happening to you. When someone's spreading lies about you and you're saying, well, why isn't anyone doing anything about this? And you have a bunch of faceless anons on social media saying, well, it's free speech, they can say whatever they want. It's because it's not directly impacting them. That is when you will feel the true pain and you will really think these things through. I would not be the perfect person to run a platform like Twitter because with personal branding, my philosophy is completely different than Twitter philosophy. Twitter philosophy, you really need to have this democracy, you could say, or meritocracy, however you want to view it. With personal branding, what the ArmaniTalks business is, I think you need to have a little bit of a tyrant in you. It doesn't matter what other people say. It matters what you say because this is your brand. So to switch from personal branding to running a platform like Twitter or hosting a Telegram group, it really does require a shift in mindset. However, you really need to think through, what do I mean by free speech? Can people really say whatever? 100% whatever that comes to their mind. Even if it's lies, even if it's doxing others, whatever? Or are we going to eventually put some rules on it? And once the rules are there, it has to be concrete. And my proposal in this episode was, it can't be rules that factors in people's feelings too much because then it gets messy. My rules is from the chain effects, does it ever lead to bodily harm with someone else? Because if it does, if your words led to someone else being killed, you got blood on your hands. Your words nowadays matter way more than back in the days. It's because nowadays we have tools like this. If you're listening from audio, I'm pointing at my microphone, one of the most powerful tools out there. And we have tools like this. If you're watching from audio, I'm pointing all around me. There's waves around me, right? These waves are taking my messages and it's turning it into packets and spreading it all around the planet. Choose your words carefully. Don't spread hate for no reason at all. Anyways, we are wrapping up today's episode. It's time for the promos. If you enjoy talks like this, you definitely want to subscribe to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I am currently a niche account, so certain people from around the planet have this interest towards communication skills. They want to be taught communication skills, not in lecture format, but in story format. If that's something that you're interested in, that's what the ArmaniTalks brand focuses on. And if you know someone that's interested in content like this, have them subscribe to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. One of the things that I talk about all the time is that people remember people who recommend them content that they needed in that specific moment in their lives. I guarantee you, there is a YouTube video, a podcast, a blog for anything a person is going through. And if there's not content like that in the ArmaniTalks YouTube library yet, there will soon be. So stay updated. This is the everything store, sort of like Amazon of personal brands. So you definitely want to recommend other people to the Armani Talks brand. And if you really want to stay updated with me, go on ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter, subscribe, and stay updated with the latest content. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will catch you next time.